Christoph, thank you for accepting my invitation to be a part of this series.
I'm very excited.
And as a young professional, I want to get your advice and insights about being a mathematician and what this job entails too as a professional. As I want to learn some things from you about how to be a researcher, what makes a good researcher, and so on and so forth. So for that, I don't want to take a lot of your time. I will just set up a timer of 15 minutes and we will chat in this time. And whenever the timer goes off, I will thank you. And that is going to be my short time to get advice from you, at least for today, at least on record maybe. All right. Okay, I was able to start it. I will put it this way so that we don't see it. Otherwise, we will just look at it, right?
Yeah.
So the first question that I need to ask is, what do you think of being a mathematician? What is being a mathematician as a profession? What is inside this definition?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And often people ask me when I tell them I'm a mathematician, and then they're kind of surprised us and ask, what are you doing? Cannot imagine how the life and how the work of a mathematician looks like. And they say, well, but we know everything about mathematics. This is what many people think. Of course, no, this is not true. So, of course, there's this aspect of dealing with mathematical problems, whether they are relevant or not. If they're interesting, they deserve attention. And of course, but the other aspect is that in many contexts, it's really useful for daily life. And yeah, I think the life of a mathematician concerns both of these aspects. For some people more, for some people less. I try to be on both sides. Also, I have to admit I'm more on the theoretical side. That's what makes it often difficult to argue with non-mathematicians. What are you doing? Is this useful for something? And so on.
I think we shouldn't oversee the fact that you also teach on the side of your job, that there's also a teaching aspect of this job to relay the information and teach logic to students basically better. They like
and we're teaching not only mathematicians.
That is
so
true.
The teaching is not the self-purpose of keeping mathematics alive, but we teach to computer scientists, engineers. They are also in bad need of mathematics.
Exactly. But you said you stay more on the theoretical side most of the day, so maybe I should ask you about that. Theoretical side you meant in the research side?
Yeah, like non-applied mathematics. Yeah. So nowadays often mathematics is divided in applied mathematics and then the other part, is the non-applied mathematics.
You're really
symbolic like this.
So then I should ask, in research, what do you think makes a good researcher? I know that is a really open-ended question.
Yeah, first of all, you should be curious. I think if you're not curious, you cannot be a good researcher. You need to have a sense of what problem is interesting. And definitely you need some, I think it's called stamina, that you stay with the problem, that you don't give up too early.
But then one thing is, so some people get really curious, like overly curious, and they got involved in many projects. How should one limit themselves into having the amount of projects that they can handle?
Yeah, of course, you have to feel it yourself, what is too much. That, of course, you can start many projects, at some point you realize you're not going to manage all of them. I mean, I feel this myself often. I have so many unfinished projects in my folder that I got curious at some point, and then because of lack of time or because I got stuck, I put them aside.
I'm feeling that way all the time almost. That's why I'm asking that.
Somehow luck. I think it's a good luck that I have more ideas or more projects to work on that I can actually do. Also, it's sometimes frustrating. I think the opposite would be even more frustrating.
Oh, so
If I'm sitting in my office and not knowing what should I do.
Yeah, that would be disastrous. That would be really boring. But yeah, but at this version, when I had too many projects, I feel the frustration, or I feel sometimes bad towards my collaborators that I cannot provide them
Right.
timely updates.
Right. Of course, if these projects are with other people, with collaborators, then it's a bit more delicate issue. I mean, I was now more thinking about projects that I do on my own, and well, it doesn't really matter if I don't follow up on them. But yeah, if collaborators are involved, then of course it's polite to not delay the project too much. But then also, I mean, you should be honest. If you feel that you have too many projects and you can't focus on all of them, well, then honestly tell your collaborators instead of every week writing them an email saying, I'm going to look at this next week.
That's, yeah. Well, for the record, that I just started here at RICAM as your postdoc, and we're trying to collaborate. So I will not try to do that, but more so, what would you expect from your collaborators, in a sense of what makes a good collaborator, in your opinion?
Yeah, not delaying the project too much. No, but now more seriously, what is a good collaborator? I think it's important to have a good personal relationship. Also, I had collaborations with people that I had never met personally, just by email. That worked fine. But if you want to have a more intense collaboration, I think it is kind of essential that you
work together, that you share ideas.
Yeah, and that you have a good personal relationship. I can't really imagine to collaborate intensively with somebody who I don't like or who I really dislike. I think it's difficult to raise this to such a professional level that you don't care about any personal things.
Yeah, there's always the person aspect of it anyway. So maybe let's split this a little bit more now in the research side. So there are many different levels of being a researcher, starting from, let's say, from a master's student. So what would you expect from people? What do you expect from your PhD student, from a postdoc, from a colleague at the faculty level? So what are the big differences in big chunks, not in fine details, but in big chunks in your mind?
Of course, PhD students and postdocs, they're supposed to cite my work as much as possible. Okay, now on the serious side. I mean, it's clear that a postdoc should work much more independently than a PhD student. So I don't think, as a postdoc, that you go to your advisor or mentor and ask for problems and you just do what this person says. While for a PhD student, I think it depends a bit on the personality of that student, whether it's somebody who needs a lot of guidance or whether it's somebody who comes up with his own ideas. And I think as an advisor, I keep this flexibility to react on the personality of that student. But I'm, as you mentioned in the introduction kindly, I'm a young professional, so I'm currently supervising my first PhD student, so I cannot report too many experiences.
I was saying that I'm a young professional. The professional part is still in the way, but yes, you're definitely a young professional in that sense. Yeah, you have this research position at RICAM, and I mean, you have almost a decade of postdoctoral research years under your belt.
Yeah.
And I'm on my third year at the moment, and I'm feeling the heat of this uncertainty. So I should ask you, maybe directly jump into that. How do you deal with this, being a postdoc, uncertainty, and having limited contracts over and over again?
Yeah, I remember that this cost me some thought, and I wouldn't say sleepless nights, but yeah, it is something that doesn't feel very comfortable.
It cost me a lot of hair.
And I completely believe. I think when you're very young and you don't have family, you don't have kids, you can somehow cope with it. You are flexible to move to a different place. Mm-hmm. But once you have a family, it's not so easy anymore. In particular with kids, you don't want to move every year to a different project, accepting a different postdoc position. So I was very lucky to get this perspective of 6 years at RICAM after 3 years of postdoc. So this I consider big luck. And then I was happy to have my wife who has a job, a fixed position, so that somehow our surviving of the family was secured, and that in the worst case we could live with one salary at least for some time.
So the immediate family support was also helping in coping
Sure.
with this uncertainty.
Yeah, and then I always try to be optimistic. So even though maybe I didn't know where to work next year, I was always hoping that something would show up.
It comes down to luck sometimes, right? There are so many examples of great researchers that needed to get out of academia due to this issue of not being able to find a permanent position. The name that I'm thinking is Axel Riese.
Mm-hmm. Of course, there's this aspect of luck. I do hope that in average there's a bit more than just luck, that if you're doing good research, then of course you have higher chances to get a permanent position. But of course, there are unlucky cases in both directions. Some people who get a permanent position, you may also ask, why did this person get a position? And why did this person not get one?
Many things. Start from the cover letter to personal relations,
yes.
A huge spectrum maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but maybe the previous step to this. So what would you hope for your PhD students to achieve so that when they come to this point of finding a job, finding a postdoc, they're at a better location, better position?
So I think one very important thing is to gain this ability to work independently, not to be in need of some mentor that provides you with problems, with instructions, what should you do, try this, look at this problem, read this paper, but have this idea of being independent. Mm-hmm. I think this is also a very important aspect when you apply for a position, when you have to convince a committee or somebody to hire you, that you can say, well, I can work on my own. I'm an independent researcher. Yeah. I'm not just executing the instructions or the advice of somebody.
That's a great response to that, yeah. How does your teaching, how does your supervisory support that? What do you do as an example, what have you thought of doing so that your students would become more independent?
It's difficult to actively support this. At least I support this passively in giving freedom to my students, or should I say student, it's one. If she comes up with an idea to collaborate with somebody, then of course I encourage this collaboration, whether it fits into my research plan or not. It's
or
independent.
Whether it fits into her thesis topic or not. Yeah.
Right.
And I think I see this somehow in your former advisor, Peter Poppet, too, that he has many students that are impressively successful, like commendably successful, but they all have somehow different topics and they're all independent. Mm-hmm. So it seems that Peter is also supporting this idea of everybody have their own independent topics and they do what they want and they can go in the direction that they want.
Mhm.
So did you feel that when you were giving advice by Peter Paul, or?
Yeah, I think he always encouraged me by saying that what we are doing, symbolic computation, provides general methods to solve problems that appear in many different contexts.
Mhm.
And I think this is a great starting point. If you have a tool, let's say a software package, that can solve particular problems that nobody else can solve, this opens you a lot of doors for collaborations. And for me, it perfectly worked out. If you look at my publications, you will find joint papers with people from completely different areas.
That is true.
And this was so about this, I'm still grateful to Peter for guiding me into this direction, proposing this topic, that in my case worked out perfectly.
Yeah. So I think that's the time for us. And thank you for giving me these insights. I definitely learned a lot. I'm pretty sure Elaine is going to like this because we talked about what a PhD student should do.
Not sure if I said anything deep, but it was my pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you so much.
It's my honor to be member of your series of interviews.
Hopefully it will be a lot. Yeah.